And if you're a city resident, you may have opened your mailbox recently and you would have found one of these. It's the most recent candidate allegation, and it's against Natalie Rasher, showing tax warrants in her financial history.
No murder weapon was ever recovered in this case. The defense also argues that Jones was never found to have any blood on him, nor were his fingerprints ever discovered inside the home where police say that this crime happened. As you can see over my left shoulder here, there are still active flames that firefighters are battling.
That's why school districts are doing what they can to fill this seat, making sure they're getting students to and from school on time.
I'm going to highlight these points once again. 2 people have died following a plane crash here in the border of Davis and Ohio County.
If you're like me and you may not know exactly what the kids like these days, you can always find that out on this nice little ornament right here.
Now, as we mentioned back at the 4 o'clock hour, this is home base for police. Hayes Boat Ramp, as Randy was mentioning before.
Little would he know, just outside that window, the suspect was making off with his car and his dog.
Those lights back there, there's a home there, and the 4 people that live inside of it were caught by surprise when they found themselves inside of a 30-second nightmare. You talked specifically about hiring the right people for the job in those appointed positions. Do you feel as if over the years the right people hadn't been hired for the job?
They're good people.
They have always been nice. They have always been cool. I've always seen her take care of that baby.
If you spoke to people living on South Linwood Avenue, they would tell you their neighbors were good people. That's because they had no reason to believe otherwise.
They take good care of their kids. I'm always seeing them loading food in the house.
But everything was not as it seemed.
People can put up a front, or maybe you just don't know them well enough, or behind closed doors there's things going on.
And there were. Police made their way out to the home on South Linwood for a medic run.
The only reason why we even knew about it was because the dad woke up and the baby was covered in blood, and that was our first involvement. We should have been involved. Someone should have picked up the phone and called us prior to that.
Inside of the home, police say, were deplorable conditions. An affidavit cited feces on the floor, rats in the home, and trash scattered about. That affidavit was for 3 people arrested in connection to the severe neglect of a 6-month-old. Parents David and Angel Shaunabaum and Delana Thurman, Angel's sister.
Did you hear how severe the injuries were to the 6-month-old?
No.
Police believe that a rat mice bit the skin off of the fingers of the child.
Oh my God.
The child almost actually died. Was rushed to Riley's Children in Indy.
I didn't know about the fingers. She told me that his face was disfigured.
Yeah, they believe that he was bitten a little over 50 times.
Oh my God.
Neighbor Teresa Favors didn't know how bad it was until we spoke with her.
How does a child get bit over 50 times and nobody knows that the child is bit?
Would you have ever suspected something like that to happen here?
No.
In the affidavit, police say the family was already under investigation by the Department of Child Services. The last home visit, September 9th. That was from a home-based therapy company called Maglinger Home Services. We reached out to the DCS to attempt to understand how the situation could have gone on for months. They told us they couldn't comment on the case. EPD Sergeant Anna Gray says it's one of the worst child neglect cases she's seen in her decades on the force.
It's really hard to see that, and it's really hard sometimes to just maintain composure and be professional.
As for the accused, they face multiple charges of child neglect, a case so bad it nearly killed a baby who couldn't defend itself.
Any forms of neglect, no, none shown, none of that. I've never seen it. 50 times.
Well, the other 4 children in the home have been placed in another home. We will be staying on top of this case as it continues to unfold, and we'll update you each step of the way. When courts in Kentucky order a competency hearing for a defendant, they are destined for the Kentucky Correctional Psychiatric Center, or KCPC. It's the state's only facility that can complete these evaluations. Now, since COVID, facility leaders cited an onslaught of psychiatric evaluations, but the mountain of requests seems almost insurmountable. I spoke with our local Commonwealth attorneys and a seasoned defense attorney about the backlog.
Active shooter. God, please do your best. Kenneth Gibbs.
In August of 2022, the unthinkable happened at a Henderson homeless shelter. Police say Kenneth Gibbs opened fire during a meeting, killing 2 people and injuring 2 others. More than a year later, Gibbs is still sitting in the Henderson County Detention Center. He and the victims' families waiting for his trial.
an average wait of more than a year now at KCPC, which is my what I believe we have for serious cases, is simply too long.
Meet Tom Griffiths. He represents Kenneth Gibbs. The Kentucky Psychiatric Correctional Center, or KCPC, is the facility where Gibbs is set to have a psychiatric evaluation. That determines whether he is fit to stand trial. That order was handed down in February. As of October, he's still waiting.
If someone is under an order to have a KCPC evaluation, the case pretty much halts right there.
The wait list, however, is not unusual. According to the state, KCPC is the only place in the Commonwealth that can do so.
The wheels of justice move slow, and they move slower due to COVID.
Commonwealth attorneys like Kathy Center in Hopkins County tell me there's always been a wait list, but it's never been this bad. In July, KCPC leaders say there were 300 people waiting on an evaluation. In the span of 3 weeks, KCPC received more than 100 court orders and sat at 353 inmates waiting by August 15th. So Gibbs and the victims' families are all stuck waiting. His attorney says waiting can be detrimental.
Sitting in a jail cell doesn't do anything positive for anyone's mental health.
The pandemic didn't help with wait times, but there's another reason for that growing list. For that, we need to go back to 2019.
That's when a Louisville man named Kane Madden was charged with several violent crimes, including rape and assault.
Mr. Madden is incompetent and unlikely to regain in the foreseeable future.
Madden was found unfit to stand trial, and because of a law called Section 202C, Madden was released. That law at the time had a gray area that dropped charges against people deemed unfit to stand trial without having them committed. Months later, police say Madden raped an 8-year-old girl, fracturing her skull in the process.
Folks were just turned out on the street. The case was dismissed.
Lawmakers adjusted Section 202C, which focuses on involuntary commitment, back in 2021. If a violent criminal can't stand trial, their charges are still dropped, but now they're admitted to KCPC.
Which then places those who are under a 202C order to the front of the line, which then pushes our normal evaluations down further.
Center says a third of KCPC's beds are now devoted to 202C individuals. Add in staffing shortages in what's devoted to 202C, and the state reports the rest of the Commonwealth has just 25 beds for inmates awaiting psychiatric evaluations. And the state says the average evaluation is taking anywhere from 10 to 12 months.
It is very difficult for victims. It's difficult to present those cases to a jury and have the jury to understand the primacy and urgency of those cases when that much time has passed.
Henderson County Commonwealth Attorney Herb McKee says lawmakers need to once again revisit the statute.
I don't believe that folks that are suffering from intellectual disabilities are getting the treatment and the care that they need, because there could be a less restrictive alternative to lifetime commitment to KCPC.
In an effort to cut down on the wait, state leaders say they've joined forces with 117 Kentucky jails to do outpatient evaluations there, not at KCPC. They say that's led to them completing 800 evaluations in just a year and a half. They also say they've asked for years for help from lawmakers. They've asked to expand and move the hospital out of the correctional facility since 2006, but the request has been denied time and time again.
This problem is long-standing, and in the last few years it has gotten worse. So at some point, this needs to be dealt with.
Well, we also reached out to Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear for comment. His office deferred us to the statement from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. The long-standing backlog issue is going to continue to present a problem for the foreseeable future, holding up cases in courts, keeping victims and their families from having justice served, and it's going to take more than just a slight pay raise to resolve the issue at hand. Good afternoon, I'm Steve Mehling. Let's get you to some breaking news right now out of Evansville. Southbound Highway 41 between Ruffian Way and Rusher Creek Road is shut down. That's according to Central Dispatch. We are expecting to hear from President Biden in just a couple minutes for an update on the hostage release in Gaza. Officials are now saying this happened on Henderson Island. Let's take a look at these pictures sent to us from Joseph Horton. Quite the scene going on today in an Owensboro school. I heard a tattoo might have been involved, Brian. So far, crews say this fire has burned more than 125 acres. Thanksgiving right around the corner, and a new tradition was introduced last night at Anchor Industries. Well, even though we're not getting a lot of rain, it's a lot different down south. take a look. Busy highways and neighborhoods underwater right now in parts of South Florida. It's complete with everything you might find in your grandma's house, like that floral wallpaper, family pictures, and shag carpeting. The Good Gravy Coaster will open to the public in May of 2024. Maybe the coaster will feed me too.